Hey there, beer tubers. Welcome back to Maxwell Star and Beer Analysis 101. Tonight we are taking a look at, uh, well, one of Chicago's, I think it's Chicago's craft beer. Take a look at Goose Island IPA. Anyway, getting started here, let's introduce the panel. We've got four people with us tonight. We're going to take a look at, got Redbeard. How you doing tonight, sir?
Not bad. How you doing? People of the world, what be going down, all that fun stuff.
Fun stuff.
Yeah, fun stuff.
Lee, formerly Hoogly, now what's your podcast? They must be destroyed on site.
That's right.
Exactly. How you doing?
I'm good. Let's get this beer down and drink some real beer afterwards. Be good.
Exactly. Let's hurry up and get this over with. Got Chris on the 10th and Chris Lezak Photography. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to try another IPA this week. It'll be awesome. Thanks for having me.
Nice shades, Maverick. And we've got Greg. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing just fine, Nick. I hope you're doing well too. I hope we're going to have a little bit of fun today. Be professional, give some honest opinions, and I hope everyone watching is over the age of 19 or over the age of drinking in your area. Please enjoy responsibly. Thank you.
Please enjoy professionally, I think is the word you're looking for. Anyway, moving right along, let's take a look at the little spiel that I wrote. And despite me wanting to keep these things shorter and shorter these days, this one turned out to be one of the longest I've written because there's just so much to Goose Island that I didn't know. Anyway, getting started here, Goose Island Brewery began when the original brew pub opened in Lincoln Park, Chicago, Illinois in 1988. The brewery, named for the nearby Goose Island, an artificial man-made island within Chicago, downtown Chicago, was first conceived in 1986 by founder John Hall after reading an in-flight magazine about West Coast breweries and reminiscing about a tour across Europe. This inspired him to quit his job of 20 years and start a brewery to bring the European variety to the area with the vision of becoming Chicago's local beer. Shortly after the bar opened, John offered the job of brewmaster to his son, Greg, who then attended the Siebel Institute of Technology to learn the art of brewing. In 1992, Greg Hall, searching for ideas for what would be the fledgling brewery's 1,000th batch, had a chance to encounter with Booker No of Jim Beam Distillery, which led to Goose Island acquiring bourbon barrels for what would become what is believed to be the first instance of bourbon barrel-aged beer. Nothing really to do with what we're doing now, but thought it was a cool story regardless. Eventually, the brand expanded its operations with a larger brewery in 1995, which is still in operation today. In 2006, Goose Island sold the stake in the company to Widmer Brothers Brewery from the UK, allowing Goose Island to expand production into outside markets, including the UK. Several former Goose Island employees have also gone on to found other breweries, including Matt Brynildson of Firestone Walker, Southern Tier co-founder Finn DeMink, and Matt Lincoln of Fremont Brewing. Also, X-Files star Gillian Anderson was also an employee in the early days of the brew pub, and Goose Island does even need two beers inspired by Miss Anderson, called Scully, a Saison, and Gillian, a strawberry honey Saison, which is still produced as an August seasonal. So, Goose Island's Gillian is actually named after Gillian Anderson. That is cool. In 2011, Goose Island was acquired by Anheuser-Busch, now AB InBev. AB InBev moved production of the brewery's core brands, including Goose IPA, Honkers, and 312 Urban Wheat, to their Baldwinsville, New York facility. It spent significant R&D attempting to upscale production to preserve the same taste it had in Chicago. Despite the drastic volume increase, Goose Island still claims that the beer is brewed without using adjuncts like rice or corn. Production was eventually expanded further to Fort Collins, Colorado, and to Montreal, Quebec for the Canadian market. However, AB InBev has admitted that the recipe used for the Canadian market is different slightly. Following the AB InBev sale, Greg Hall left Goose Island to start Virtue Cider, which would also be acquired by AB InBev in 2015. Today, despite being owned by a macro, Goose Island still enjoys some success amongst craft beer snobs with beers such as Bourbon County Brand Stout, Sophie Farmhouse, and Matilda Belgian Pale Ale. Goose Island IPA, what we're looking at tonight, was first introduced in 1990. Is a 5.9% ABV English-style IPA weighing in at 55 IBU and brewed using pale malt, Cascade, Centennial, Pilgrim, and Styrian Celia hops. Goose Island IPA has also won numerous awards at the Great American Beer Festival as early as the year 2000 and as recent as 2012, where it took a gold medal in India Pale Ale, and a gold at the World Beer Cup Awards in 2010, though none of those awards used the new AB InBev recipe. Yeah, so it actually says right on there, 6-time award winner at the American Craft Beer Festival. And it even has the years written in the fine print on the label. But going into detail, absolutely none of those years happened since the AB InBev buyout. So take from that what you will. So moving right along, let's take a look and see what's going on in the comments. I see a lot of Joe in there. And is that Chris telling Joe to settle down? Anybody want to read them? Lee?
Okay. Let's see here. So Joe's on there saying, here's hoping that Nick can maintain some sort of professionalism. We already sort of went through that earlier offline. Kent, Craig Beer Reviews, Kent Beer Reviews. Hey, people of the panel. Hello, Craig. And Raining on Your Parade's in here saying, to hell with Trillium, to hell with Treehouse. I got me a Goose Island IPA. A 12-ounce bottle. Don't remember the price. I believe it's a $9.99 6-pack. Maybe $8.99. Cheers to all the beer tubers. Cheers to you, sir. Average Joe says that might be the worst decision Raining on Your Parade's ever made. He said you should join one time Raining on Your Parade as long as Yort joins Best Friends.
Totally should happen.
Yeah. Let's see. And Craig says dilly dilly. And Maple Rusky's in here saying, hi, hey guys, hope your night's going well. Hello, Maple Rusky. So that's it so far.
Ray!
Don't.
All right, so moving right along. Redbeard, what's your history? Have you ever had Goose Island IPA before?
I have had it. I was just looking back right now. It was daily drink number 110 for me, so my palate wasn't quite there, but because it was so malty and not so fresh, I want to say, I kind of actually enjoyed it because it was before I was able to handle any kind of real hoppiness in an IPA. And yeah, so it was something I kind of liked back then, and something I don't know if I'm really liking this time around.
Cool. Lee. Ugh,
Yeah.
Lee, how you doing? What's your history on Goose Island IPA?
I've had it before. I can't quite pin down when I first had it because I don't remember exactly when it showed up at the NSLC. It's been a few years. I didn't do a review on it, so who knows? It might have just been by that point when I was sort of winding down reviews anyway. I was just kind of like, I can skip this fucking beer. Who gives a shit? So it might have been there for 3 years or more. I just want to note my can doesn't have all that sort of extra information that some of you guys' cans do. Like, it doesn't have the medal winning shit and all that stuff on it, or the hotline you can call. It's on Greg's can apparently.
Yeah, like the little stamp on the side here, 6-time winner. Yours doesn't have that.
Nope.
Maybe it comes down to can age.
Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, I assume I've always had the Canadian recipe as far as just the Goose, like the base beers, like the Honkers and the IPA and stuff like that go. We also had their Ophelia and Sophie at one point that came in just extra special. They're big Belgian bottled stuff. Yeah, I've had it before, and that's pretty much my history of it. It's not something that ever really blipped on my radar or is anything I gave a shit about. So we'll see what I think when we get into the review, but that's about it.
Cool. Yeah, I think it was like 2014 that Sophie and Matilda showed up here in New Brunswick, so it might have been around the same production run. Because I noticed it, and I didn't put it in the history thing. I noticed that when, like, Goose Island was trying to make inroads into Canada. They actually made a shipment of Sophie and Matilda to ship around Canada, so it might have been on the same batch. And then the rollout of Goose IPA into the Canadian market was 2015. So that would have been around the time you were winding down.
Would have been nicer if it was fucking Bourbon County they'd shipped out instead of those two substandard fucking Belgian style beers. Just saying.
Yeah, really. Anyway, on the 10th, what's your history?
I don't believe I've had this beer before, but if I did, I'm pretty sure I would have put them in tiny little shot glasses and reviewed them. But I've never had this before, and so I'm drinking this for the first time. That's it.
Nice. And Greg, I know you've had this before. At least I think you've had this before. Actually, I don't know if you've had it before, but have you had it before?
Nick, you seem a little bit unsure of yourself, so let me help enlighten you. Apparently, the first time I had this beer was in 2015. I imagine it's probably shortly after they started bringing Goose Island stuff to the LCBO. Maybe they brought it a little before, I don't know, but I usually buy stuff when I see it. So, yeah, I've had it a few times since then. I've always thought it's fine for what it is. I like some Goose Island products. I really don't like other Goose Island products, and that just depends. I think it's a company that some of their stuff has maintained its micro integrity, and some of the stuff not so much. So yeah, I don't know. My history is I've had it before. I hope that answers your question, Nick. Plus a little extra. Sorry to interrupt you, Nick. I apologize for that, but I just wanted to point out that my can gives a couple flavor notes, and then it just gives the same thing in French underneath, so it doesn't have any of the gold medal.
Yeah, it's like the same stuff. The same thing, almost like same design can, except for mine says Craft Beer Festival, and yours says Citrus Aromas and hop.
Yeah, mine says the same thing. Mine says nothing about the awards.
Yeah, so it may just be the different areas of the country got different cans or something.
Or different production runs, and they have such volume that there's lots of mixed stock.
Or maybe they're just trying to sell a little bit more in your area.
Like, did you guys buy this in like the selection pack or whatever it was, the sampler pack?
No, I just bought a single can.
Just bought single cans.
I did buy the selection pack earlier on in anticipation of doing this, but then we pushed it back for several weeks, so I ended up going through all that shit. So I went and bought a new can today. It was $3.75 here at the NSLC for $4.73 can.
The selection pack at the LCBO, the one you're talking about, Nick, it was listed, but it's extremely low stock in most stores. Like there's like one or two stores in Toronto that have like one of them, which probably means it was something that was released in like September, and there's just a couple leftovers kicking around.
Yeah, I bought this in the Rambler mixer pack, the one that had the Rambler IPA. Got about 2 weeks ago, and I'm not sure exactly the same age, but I would assume that if it's like a new seasonal, it was probably from the fall, or brewed in the summer and then put in the package in the fall. Anyway, as far as my history with this goes, the first time I ever had Goose Island IPA is I bought a 6-pack, or it was either a 4 or a 6-pack that I had bought in Calais, Maine, and brought across the border and home, and I reviewed it on my channel with the guys back in November of 2012. And of course it was like, I'm not sure if it was like this using the same recipe as the A&B AB InBev, because it was after the AB InBev purchase, but it certainly didn't taste like what I'm getting out of this. It actually had, it was a very delicious grapefruity IPA, but it was very muted in its hop, so it was also very sessionable in that sense. Whereas this, I get where they're trying to make something that tastes similar, but I don't think it was exactly the same. And considering it was an American release versus Canadian release, it's hard to tell. But overall, my personal history is I had it in 2012. I really liked it. First time I ever had it, I gave it a 4 out of 5. And the subsequent releases, I haven't rated nearly as high since it started being canned here. And I think when it first came out in 2015 around here is around the time that I first picked it up because I was excited to try it. And then, All right. Well, moving right along before we get into our ratings, even though I've kind of spoiled some of it for myself. let's see what kind of professional comments Joe has left and some of the others.
Yeah, there's only 2 new comments really. Basically, Chris is on the chat here saying that Greg's professional, I guess, or Nick or somebody, I don't know. Average Joe
Thank you,
says,
Chris.
Yeah, it was Greg I was talking about.
There you go. Okay, now we got some comments flooding in here. Average Joe said, had this beer back in 2011, 12, a few times, hadn't had it since. It was similar to most regular Goose Island offerings, decent enough, but it doesn't stand out from the crowd. I imagine nowadays with 75 million IPAs, it's the same, if not worse. With the AB InBev purchase, you can pretty much grab this almost anywhere, although freshness is always a question mark. And then Raining on Your Parade says, been a couple years since I've had this. I already knew I was not going to be wowed. The hit on the beer is nice. I think it is good. No plans to buy it again. And then someone called Bradshaw 212 says, Maxwell Star, love your reviews. What happened to the Rhino still identity crisis?
He's still out there. He hasn't had a real BDU in a couple weeks, and I was talking to him earlier, and he was saying something about he might be working tonight, might not be. So whether or not we see him online later, I'm not sure. Anyway, getting back to the beer, and by the way, thank you for the comment on the reviews. Love it. Getting back to our thoughts on the beer, is anybody ready to give ratings? Redbeard?
Yeah, more or less. It's not as good as I want to say I thought it was the first time. It's not bad. It tastes more to me like an English style IPA where it's more malty than hoppy. I'm not sure if that's what they're going for with the other cans that we're seeing that have the different label that say the bold citrus aromas. I'm not getting anything. I'm getting like bready, malty aromas off it. And it's not bad, but it tastes old for an IPA kind of thing. And I'm not super impressed. So I give it like a 4 for the style and maybe like a 6 overall out of 10.
Okay.
My own opinion.
Like it. Your own opinion? That's your own opinion? I think that might get a copyright strike if we started calling things on our opinion. Anyway, Lee, what's your thoughts on this beer? I know that I don't think you're the greatest fan of this one.
No, I think, I do kind of wonder if they're going for more of an English style IPA here, maybe just like a kind of a more modern take on a sort of traditional English IPA more than anything else. I mean, I think the IBUs are up there. I think they're somewhere in the 50s or 60s, but and the alcohol is 5.9. But it is fairly malt forward. I mean, the hoppiness is there, but it's balanced and sort of integrated into the whole drink fairly smoothly. Like, doesn't seem like it's overpowering anything. And, it is vaguely citric. I mean, it's got kind of a grapefruity, maybe tangerine kind of thing going on. But I'm getting a lot more malt than I am getting hops. And it feels a little bland, a little too easy to drink. Kind of feels like mass market IPA for everybody to drink kind of thing. And I mean, if they're going for the sort of English style thing, I guess it maybe makes sense that this is sort of paired up with like Honker's Ale and stuff, kind of, since Honkers is supposed to be kind of their British bitter / ESB kind of idea. And also the Rambler IPA is supposed to be so much more intense and shit like that. It's supposed to be more Americanized. But at either rate, style wise, I think it's a little bland, a little uninteresting. So I don't think it quite hits what I'm looking for here. So I'm gonna give it a 6.5. And my overall enjoyment, I'm not too keen on this. Honestly, I'll probably never drink this again after this analysis. But I'll throw it a 6. I'll throw it a bone. It's not terrible actively or anything like that. It's just very uninteresting.
Hear you there. Chris, what's your thoughts? I don't think you're a fan either, are you?
Well, no, you know what? To be honest with you, this kind of reminds me of drinking Keith's. Is what it does for me, in my own opinion. But Is this what it says? It says, is it really what it says on the can? Is it citrus and a hot bold finish? No, it's not. It's a fail in that department, and I'm going to agree with everyone else so far that this is very malt forward as opposed to hop forward for an IPA. So in the style, I'm going to give it a, I don't know, 6 out of 10. I should actually go lower than that, but I'm going to be a little bit generous and give it a 6 out of 10. Personal enjoyment, it's not the worst thing I've ever had. It's not terrible. It's drinkable. It's refreshing, at least a little bit, especially cold. I don't know how good this would be if it was actually at room temperature, but this, for me, for my own personal enjoyment and overall, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 as well. And yeah, 6 is across the board.
It seems like pretty steady so far. Greg, I know you like to ruin it for everybody, but what's your take on this thing?
Oh, I like to ruin things, but only in a professional way.
Exactly.
So, to me, it tastes sort of, while it is malt forward, like everyone else has said, it tastes to me like a combination of an English pale ale mixed with sort of a bit of a West Coast pale ale. And I cheated a little bit and looked at Untapped, and it is listed as an English pale ale.
I said that in my spiel too.
Oh, did you? I don't listen to what you talk. I'll be honest. I'm usually just focused on professional. No, I'm focused on my own professionalism. Your own professionalism is that's on you, Mr. Nick.
Uh-huh.
Anyways, so I don't think it really gets either one correctly. I think it's probably closer to an English pale ale than it is the West Coast. But whatever. I think for style, it's a 6. I think it's passable, but it doesn't do a great job. For my own personal enjoyment, I'm going to go for a 6.5. It's good. Like, it's sort of in the realm of good for me. I wouldn't be upset if I ever had to buy this again, but I probably wouldn't unless I had a reason to, or I knew somebody that really liked it and wanted to buy a few cans. It's like, I think one of the comments said, I can't remember who it was, if it was Joe or somebody else, but there's just so many IPAs out there that I just have no real reason to buy this. It's not that it's bad. It's just there's too much else there, and it's no cheaper than, say, a good micro IPA. So why?
What did you say it was for style?
Exactly.
I completely agree.
For style, I said 6.
Okay.
Are you doing the math there, Chris?
I am.
Cool. I won't bother. Yeah, I'm going to concur. I'm not getting as much of the malt up front as everybody else is, but it's definitely a very the big thing I don't really like about this one here is that when I drink it, I mean it's earthy. Yeah, okay, I understand that from an English style IPA perspective. Then it gets like this big heavy resin that comes from like the use of I think I said it used Cascade hops, didn't I? And that goes, yeah, Cascade and Centennials makes complete sense. And of course, I'm not really a huge fan of the resin anyway. And I find it really comes up with a flavor that kind of sticks in my throat a little. I get white grapefruit and caramel, and it's not bad. It's drinkable. It's not horrible. But as far as I feel like it approaches the style of an English IPA, but it also tries to Americanize it as well. When it integrates the citrus fruits as well, and I think it might come from using the 2 C's. The hops that are typically associated with like the American Northwest, and just like Greg said, it kind of blends a English IPA with a Northwest IPA. And that's probably just something that's been tailored to American tastes over the time. But hey, overall, it's not a bad IPA. But you're right, at the price point, these things cost me $3.75 a can to buy. The 6-pack I got, I think was $16.95 or $15.95, which is really not bad for considering it's 6 500 milliliter cans of 3 different beers to try. But overall, there's other stuff out there that's better. That I would spend the money on that first, like anything from Collective Arts. So for my ratings, I'm going to give it a 6 out of the style and 6.5 for personal enjoyment. So that matches what Greg said. Oh,
I'm glad we agree on something, Nick.
Just say I want to completely agree with Lee when he said the whole mass-produced comment there. That's kind of in the flavor overall. There is that kind of it's been just made so much, and there's something about it. It's got that kind of not a bud taste, but a Bud kind of quality-ish to it, where there's something in it that just seems mass-produced.
It's almost like that feeling of eating a McDonald's hamburger. It's just nothing special. It's
kind of diluted, and like
Yeah.
and what you're saying.
But if you're hungry, it fills you up.
yeah,
So many other
exactly.
IPAs out
But
there.
if you were at a bar and the only thing was on tap that was AB InBev products and Goose Island was one of them, I would definitely pick it up. But I just get the feeling like I having had a chance to have it in 2012 before. I mean, the labels were even different and everything back then. And having it back then, I just remember it was a much better IPA. And I'm not sure, did I have it back when it was still the original recipe brewed out of Chicago, or is it the mass-produced kind that they had made in I think Labatt makes it here in Canada, in their Montreal brewery. But overall, I just find it's.
Yeah, it still wouldn't be the Canadian version, would it? It still would have been the American-made version. So even there, I mean, we should mention a caveat here. I think most of us have the Canadian-made version.
I think all of us in this chat right now. I think all of us have the Canadian version.
Yeah, so this is going to be slightly different than what the American viewers are getting.
It would be cool to get one of each and do a comparison side by side, but.
But I remember in the past I've had beers that I've had American versions before, and then had the Labatt brewed version of, and I just wasn't impressed. Like, was it the Guinness Extra Stout, or even Rolling Rock? I think I had the original, like the Rolling Rock from the States, and I had Rolling Rock when they started making it. Labatt started making it for the Canadian market. It has that same kind of almost. I'm not going to call it greasy, but it's got that kind of metallic kind of aftertaste. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, I know they're not Labatt products, but like even something mass-produced like Coors Light or Smirnoff Ice, try the American version, try the Canadian version. A lot of these mass-produced products are incredibly different.
I mean, in the case of Smirnoff Ice, I mean, the big difference there is that they can't put actual vodka and shit in their coolers down south. Whereas we can.
I think theirs is like a flavored malt beverage, and ours is actually vodka mixed with whatever. And it's also, I think, a big difference in ABV too. It's like 7.5 versus like 5.5 or something.
Tends to be.
They can't do it down there?
No, they can't by law.
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Yeah, but that's also why. Because when I used to hit up duty-free shops and pick up Smirnoff Ice, my mom quite liked it. So it was always the Canadian duty-free shop had the Canadian version for. It was like slightly cheaper than the LCBO. It was like a 12-pack for like $25 or $24, whatever it was. And the American side, it was like $11 for 24 of them. It's like.
All right, so we're gonna go to comments now, are we, Nick?
Yep, go right back to comments, see what everybody else is saying.
Okay. Jace Westcott's in here and says hello. And let's see, Maple Rusky says he's had this a few times. Not too bad of a beer, nothing special. I drink it, but I wouldn't hunt it down. Rating on Your Parade said way too many IPAs on the shelf to even want to return to this beer, but it is very drinkable. That's true. Average Joe says, hey, Jace, and yes, Lee hit the nail on the head. Of course I did. I'm brilliant. Mass market IPA is basically what it is. Honestly, awesome. Though, so many of their core range fits in that category, so it makes perfect sense. That's true. That's kind of why Goose Island's core range was more co-opted by AB InBev than their specialty stuff, which they were allowed to keep brewing themselves.
Yeah, it's almost like their core range. They brew in mass quantities at the large facilities, but the special stuff that they make, like still make Bourbon County, they still make Matilda and Sophie and Jillian and all those other ones, and they make those at their Chicago facility, and it's almost like Goose Island still makes their craft stuff in the craft style, and then AB InBev has the rights to brew their core brand across the country and internationally.
Yeah, no. Every once in a while, they'll have an infected batch of their barley wine and have to give Jay Terrio a T-shirt. Let's see here. Craig from Kent Beer Review said had this quite a few times. First time around 2012. Reviewed it in my earlier reviews in 2015. Better go to IPAs out there over this. Rebel IPA, Torpedo IPA, etc. Average Joe agrees. Those are much better. Let's see here. Rainy Parade says this beer is not far off from a Samuel Adams product, a hint of macro, but well made. Craig says he'd have to see it again to see where he is with it. And he mentions could be palates that have changed rather than an English style type, Centennial and Cascade hops. Yeah, I think we're kind of saying that the maltiness is where we're coming from when it seems like it's going for a more English style here, where it's a bit more malt forward. The hops are definitely more American style hops. So let's see. Jason Westcott says coolers in the U.S. are malt beverages. Yes, exactly, as I was saying. And yeah, Average Joe says they still make good beer when it's not infected. Bradshaw 212 says, I work for Wild Turkey as a Canadian, but love the show. Gotta love my fellow Canadians, and love to hearing about unknown beers that he's never heard of.
Right on.
Yeah,
cheers.
And Average Joe says they just released their Brasserie Noir. It's basically BCBS base age for 1 year in Cabernet Sauvignon barrels. Pretty
Sauvignon.
cool, but probably
Cabernet
infected
Sauvignon.
too. Sauvignon, whatever.
Well, it's going to come out sour with the Cabernet in it. With the
Well, here's the thing. I'm
Wine,
not
anyway.
I'm not Rod J. I'm not a wine tuber, so I don't pronounce these things properly. But yeah,
Cabernet Sauvignon.
yeah. So that's
I've
the
heard the word
comment.
enough times.
So we can go.
There's the comments, and guess what? I got some scores for you, gentlemen.
Ooh, we've got scores brought
got
to you
scores.
on the 10th, and his own opinion.
I got them right here. And, well, let me see here. Redbeard brought down the style all the way down to a 5.7.
Ruined it
That's
for
okay.
everybody.
You know what? And you know what? And we all went around 6 anyway and 6.5 for Lee. So, I mean, it being a 4 for style, it's not really that far off. So 5.7 overall for style. And then, for style. And then overall opinions for everybody, you got a high mark of 6.2. So this beer
Womp womp.
is
Chippers.
But yeah, that's our score. So 5.7 for style and 6.2 for overall personal enjoyment.
Yeah.
It's drinkable, and I think I drank like 3 cans of this in a row once to get a badge on Untapped, and I'm not sorry I did because I still enjoyed it.
I'm sorry.
At the same time, yeah, okay, you are, because I was an Untapped badge.
You know, Nick, you could have just untapped it 3 times and saved yourself the money and heartache.
I'm not one of those people that cheats on Untapped by tapping every single beer that they've had, even though they had it years ago.
Could Untapped get you Bitcoin or something at least? Like,
No.
Is there some sort of something you get out of this shit?
Can't do mining with Untapped.
You just get personal achievement.
As Joe would say, Nick is a badge whore.
I'm not as
you
badge
monster.
whore as like certain people who have actually bought Untapped accounts to get that award and access to special badges like you were. Anyway, moving right along. Yeah, I see we got some last comments there. Yeah, and they're making fun of me. Malta Montreal says he's never tried Goose Island, and you're not missing much unless you're talking about Bourbon County.
I bet he's been good still.
Bourbon County is fucking good.
I've heard
Anyway,
that I want to try it.
Even then, with Bourbon County nowadays, there's plenty of other barrel aged stouts that
True
are
enough.
just as good, if not better. So if you can't get Bourbon County, don't
Get
feel that
yourself-
bad about yourself.
Get yourself some Parabola or something. You know?
Double Tempest. Even Amsterdam makes it damn good.
Some Parabs.
Parabs.
What's the beer next week, gentlemen? What's next week?
Next week's beer
Uh-oh.
is going to be
I was trying to make it a
Bottle
secret,
in.
Nick. Jeez.
Bottle Imp from Bose.
Oh
Yep.
yeah.
From Bose, the one beer at the bar with the tractor on the jar. We're not looking at Logo Tread. I actually
am
can't
very
get
much-
Logo Tread here.
Very much looking forward to
I can
this
get Logo
this beer analysis next week.
Can we just turn this into a Terrio one, because I can get Logo Tread. So I mean, it's from the same brewery at least.
I would love to do Logo Tread at some point, but I can't get it here, even though they send it to Nova Scotia in cans.
That's
You know,
their
stay tuned. We'll be doing Logo Tread on the 10th on Beer Analysis 201.
Oh yeah, awesome.
For future.
I'm very surprised you can't get that. That's Bose like mainstream and everywhere.
Well, we only really
we
started getting Bose within the last year or two.
Hey, just out
Yeah,
of curiosity,
Lug
what
Tread
kind
is
of-
all I've gotten.
What kind of beer is Bottle Limp anyway?
It's an Imperial Stout.
Stout, I think. Yeah.
Coffee stout.
Russian Imperial Coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you
Is it
guys
coffee?
I'll give you guys
I guess
spoilers
I'm
for
gonna
next
get it.
week. It's
in my
good.
fridge.
It's.
Yeah, Russian Imperial Coffee Stout, 9%
I agree, Greg.
ABV.
I agree with you so much. I've had it. I think I've done a vlog on it, and I think I had it in like a live hangout at one point, and then this is going to be like the third time me kind of live reviewing it. But yeah, I'm down. I'm so down.
Right on. These actually have proper bottle on dates too.
Bose.
Anyway.
I like Bose. Bose does shit the way it should be done.
Oh, by the way, from looking up some information on the internet, I'm not totally sure because it looks like they've changed their bottling dates, but it looks like my Goose Island was bottled November 15th, so it's not super fresh, but not terribly old. Not terribly old.
You could explain some of the malt
3.5
stories.
Basically, I think if you look at the letter and then the first two digits after that, that gives you the month and the date, and then I think you can just use logic to figure it was 2017 and not 2016 or 18.
You'd hope. Cross your fingers.
So I've got an L15, which should correspond to November 15th.
Yeah, mine's LO2, so it's probably November 12th then. Or 2nd. 3rd.
Yeah, that probably makes
Ladies and
sense.
gentlemen, we've all drank old fucking IPAs today, so this is why we're all.
Well, we've all drank old IPAs, but when it comes to Goose Island, it doesn't help.
Well, you know what?
It's a bit fresher.
You know what? Sorry, let me just say one thing. If a store, whether it the LCBO or whatever your liquor store of choice is willing to sell me a product, then it is eligible to be reviewed. If a company such as Goose Island allows their product to be sold, it is eligible to be reviewed. So by those standards, this is fresh enough and just as eligible as a bottle that's a day old or a can that's a day old.
Mm.
You take my money, then it's fair game.
Again, like my main thing is for the price. It's not. There's no justifying buying this instead of so many other really delicious craft. Like I would buy Flying Monkeys, Juicy Ass, or
Let's
Collective Arts.
just be honest. The reason we're
Collective
doing
Arts-
this beer is because we could all get it.
It was a
Yeah.
macro.
Fair enough.
Technically.
Yeah,
It's
I'm just-
macro week.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But no, like Collective Arts. No, I'm not even saying like their IP number 5 and shit. I'm saying the mainstay one, which is Ransack the Universe. If you get
Ransack
that
the Universe
fresh,
is so tasty.
it's so good fresh. If you can get it within a month, it's.
We've done it.
Yeah, we did that last year, like late last year.
This is before my time with you guys, and it makes me sad.
Yeah. But again, Collective Arts
Sorry.
is a relatively small operation, and they're not mass producing stuff. So I mean, it's a little bit of a different animal. But
Sure. As far as IPAs go, like this one here, if it was the only I don't know, non-Canadian Coors, Bud, Blue stuff that was available at the store I was at in some small town, I'd probably maybe pick some up. But aside from that, I'm gonna.
again, if I was in a situation where this is all I could get IPA wise, or if this was $1.50 a can, I'd have no problem buying lots of it.
Like I was
But
saying,
that's
if this
not
was the only
reality.
thing at the bar, and if you were like at a wedding, they only served InBev products.
Yeah.
I get that.
Oh, if you're at
I'd
a
rather drink
wedding
Coors
compared to the other stuff they sell at weddings or give you at weddings, yeah.
Yeah, like when you're
Way a lot
comparing
better.
it to like Budweiser or Coors or
I'd be
something.
hitting the hard liquor.
However,
That's
if they
I
do
don't
have
we're
MCD,
insulting Chris here when we're insulting Coors.
You know what? Fuck you
Okay,
guys.
one last look at the comments. It says Malton Montreal says it's sad Quebec that we don't get many American or Canadian craft beers, but I would say that Quebec craft beers are still a lot of them.
Again, I'm really crying for you there, Malton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
like my buddy Marcel goes to Quebec on road trips quite often just to hit up the bottle shops because there's so many awesome beers you can only get there. So yeah, I don't feel bad for you on that front at all, Malton. I'm sorry.
we're bordering on a hangout territory here. All right, so why don't we wrap it up for tonight, and we'll go to a live hangout afterwards, unless we end up running into Chad doing something. I'll send some invites out as soon as I get the chat running, and we'll talk to you folks later.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Don't drink and drive. It's terrible, guys. Haven't you heard?
and if you're a bad driver.